Hello. Now, I met a participant to a conference holding here in Abuja, and in the course of our conversation, he said to me, and I'd like to share with you what he said. I'm quoting him now. I heard so much negative things about your country, and I was afraid to come here. But I've met very good Nigerians, and it's a beautiful country, unquote. Not that I was surprised, because back in time, holding the Nigerian green passport was enough to subject one to some form of discriminatory treatment from, some foreign immigration officials. Now, of course, you remember that a one-time minister in the UK was reported to have called Nigeria, all sort of names, again, a fantastically corrupt country. But let's go back in time to 2015. That's when the ruling party, the All Progressives Congress, embarked on what has been described as the most ambitious political campaign in Nigeria. Now, change was the central theme. At the time, the party made it very clear at every campaign ground that it was not going to be business as usual, and that the change was going to be very pervasive. No sector was to be spared. Perhaps the most ambitious will be the promise to nip corruption at its very foundation. Now, everyone, of course, is familiar here in Nigeria with the famous quote from President Muhammadu Buhari: "We will kill corruption before it kills Nigeria." And indeed, it was third on the APC agenda. Corruption is not peculiar to Nigeria. It has a very global spread, but of course, it varies in dimension between regions and countries. Transparency International have come out with various perception index, rankings, of course, not too pleasant for Nigeria. But of course, we must understand that in the world, among the top 10 or among the best, least corrupt countries is also, from Africa. That's Botswana. And of course, here in Nigeria, perceptions are changing, and credit must be given to this administration. And one of the success stories that this administration probably have recorded is evident in the unanimous selection of President Muhammadu Buhari to lead the crusade against corruption on the African continent. And of course, we know when that happened recently, not too long ago. So today on Late Edition, we take on perspectives to the fight against corruption. I am Claire Adilabu Abdul Razak. Ibrahim Magu is acting chairman, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Nigeria. It's a position he's held since 2016. Now, he was head EFCC's Economic Governance Unit, EGU. He's reputed for leading many high-profile investigations against top government officials. So he's a member of the investigative committee probing the procurement of arms in armed forces from 2007 till now. He's also a member of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Anti-Corruption. Ibrahim Magu is a graduate of accountancy from the Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria. He's a certified accountant, trained financial crimes investigator with bias in forensic accounting. He also trained at the FBI Institute, as well as London Metropolitan Police Institute. Above all, he's a police officer and presently a commissioner of police in the Nigeria Police Force. Victor Bruno Paledi is Director General, Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime, DCEC, Botswana. He is Deputy Inspector General of Police in Botswana, or was a Deputy Inspector General of Botswana Police Service. He joined the Botswana Police Service as a cadet and rose through the ranks. Now, he holds a Bachelor of Arts degree, BA Environmental Science, a diploma in Strategic Leadership, certificate in law, and other short courses in law enforcement and strategy. Gentlemen, it is my highest pleasure to have you join me on this discussion.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Let's start with our own Mr. Ibrahim Magu. Let's start by evaluating the crusade, from the Nigerian perspective, the crusade against, of course, the fight against corruption. For you, what are the most inspiring stories so far?
Well, at least we are, people are getting to know, creating awareness, and, we want to bring in everybody on board. So I think it is most encouraging, that it is no longer business as usual. People don't do impunity anyhow. So there is some kind of, would I say, caution, and well, everybody is sitting up. People are getting aware. We are sensitizing every Nigerian to on of the fight. I think that is most inspiring. And when I go around, people congratulate me every time. So I always tell them that, look, it's not me alone. So you must learn to support me so that we can do this thing together. It is about our country.
You, in your profile that I read out recently, I said you're reputed for leading many high-profile investigations against top government officials. What is strategic in the way we're fighting corruption, in this dispensation?
Well, it's investigation of financial crimes, and I mean, it goes on. You never can tell this is the way a case will end up. Even if you handle a case one way, they may come the same, but you don't have to approach it the same way. I mean, it's more of discretional, and I mean, a lot of analysis, a lot of follow-up, and I think that's it.
Is there any investigation that you hold close to your chest that it's so, that you celebrate? Can you share with us?
No. I'm telling you, like you said, almost all the celebrated cases, particularly involving politically exposed person, were done by, I was the chief detectives, and that was when we had the economic governance section, when we started collaborating, working with our colleague in the Metropolitan Police. And eventually the FBI also joined us, and so you see, they are all there to our heart. It's not personal, it's never taken personal, but it gives us joy that we are doing something to this country. We are trying to showcase the fact that corruption is evil. Corruption is crimes against humanity, and it's interesting. I mean, I have no particular case that is interesting. All the cases are interesting. All the cases that are on papers, that are blowing all over the place, I mean, there must be where I put in my destiny. So I am not particular about any case. There's no personal interest, yes. Okay,
I'd like to also, because you have quite extensive experience in this area, so I'd like you to look back and now, in evaluating this administration, using the fight against corruption as a benchmark, what areas would you, what area stands this administration out? Is it in the fact that the EFCC, for instance, or the institutions, the anti-graft institutions, are now being more, independent? Or is it in the fact that the institutions are better strengthened?
You see, what you need in fighting corruption is political goodwill. The moment the leadership is committed to the fight against corruption, that is very, very key to any fight against corruption. Then you need a commitment from the operatives, from the people you are working with. So far, so good. I can assure you that there was no interference. I haven't experienced any indirect interference, nobody. So it's joy. You have political goodwill, the president supporting the fight against corruption without any interference, and I say any interference, no interference whatsoever. So it's good. We are allowed to do our work within the confines of the rule of law, and we make successes. And you see, we have recorded a lot of things Yeah.
I know.
We have done so many things that has not been done before.
Precisely what I wanted to speak about, maybe those things that we have not done before.
Yeah.
Can you share some of those things with us?
Like committing a senior advocate of Nigeria. It's not easy. Yes, because one of our main problems is that there are a lot of senior lawyers who help us in this fight, who are behind us in the fight, but very few of them are really going helter-skelter to derail the whatever success we record in this fight. Yeah, so it's not a kind of blanket something. Very many of them are really behind us, supporting what we are doing and advising us, guiding us from time to time. We have meetings with them. Very few of them from now nobody is above the law. Yes, so we'll go after anybody who has committed an offense. That's why I said this issue of selectivity, you know, of course you have to be selective in the sense that you go after people who have committed offense, who have committed crimes, who have looted the treasury dry, who have taken away the wealth, the common wealth of this country. So if you have nothing, if you have not touched anything, nobody will go after you.
You just said something now, and I'll quickly I'll bring in the DG of Botswana in a short while. But you said something. Nobody is above the law as far as the fight against corruption is concerned. But the EFCC is usually criticized, you know, and I beg to use the word toothless bulldog by those who feel that okay. There are some certain people that are probably, you know, seen as sacred cows. You know, some past political leaders have been, you know, accused of some corrupt practices, and we've not seen anyone, you know, being prosecuted as is done in some countries. We've seen recently South Africa, they did, France did it, and other countries in the world. You know,
that's what I'm saying is that people should take ownership of the fight against corruption. It should not be left to the agencies involved in the fight in the fight against corruption. So if there is anything that somebody has seen from behind, either they bring us to our notice, showing us evidence that there are glaring evidence that offense has been committed. I don't think there is nobody you have evidence, and anybody who is invited, who was invited in the EFCC. We do a lot of background investigation before we ever invite you. Nobody will come and tell you that he has not committed an offense.
Okay, let's take this criteria one after the other. Control of corruption, budget openness, you know, judicial independence, rule of law. In evaluating our performance in the fight against corruption, can you take these elements one by one and see how well we've fared?
You mean judiciary?
Yes, let's look at the judicial, of course.
Yeah, of course. You know, it's one of the issues, challenges we are facing, of course. But there is the process, the court process are very slow. Of course, we had politically exposed cases that has lasted for more than 8 years and still under court under prosecution. But you agree with me that of recent. I mean, the Chief Justice of Nigeria has tried. He has put in a lot of effort and bringing sanity and has addressed the issue of corruption even in the judiciary itself headlong. Yeah, I think Nigerians should appreciate that. And I want to appeal to other Chief Justices of Nigeria to please support the Chief Justices. Other judges in Nigeria should also support what he's doing, so that there is a need for reform and there's a need for us to join hands together, to work together, to collaborate together, to collocate together, to bring in sanity in the society. I know it's not something that you do at a go, but I think it's a good beginning. You know,
I like, which for you is more widespread in Nigeria, you know, among all the corrupt practices, illicit financial flows, money laundering, terrorist financing, stealing?
Yeah, stealing, of course. It is. I think they are connected. Stealing, illicit financing, financial flow, money laundering, they are all the same in the same cycle. And terrorist financing, they see use money and finance terrorism, like most of what is happening now. The killings are being financed by most of the looters. I mean, people use the money to destabilize the country, which is not good, not fair.
Let me bring in Ms. Paledi right now. I'd like you to share your own experience. Generally, if you're looking at most African countries, in terms of their corruption index is quite low, especially countries sub-Saharan Africa. How can you evaluate the fight against corruption?
First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to add my little voice to the fight against corruption. And from the onset, I want to be very, very clear. There is all this praise about Botswana being a shining example of democracy and doing things well. But I would like to humbly make it a point that, the fight against corruption, to start with, is a function of the people. And then all countries are peculiar. I cannot compare myself to Nigeria. Nigeria has its own history, has its own dynamics. So the results that we are actually having are also tied to our history. And if you can indulge me to actually take you along the history memory. Botswana, as you know, it was a British colony. And most of it had no resources. It was a desert. It was classified by the colonizers as a desert. So it was a transit route from the Cape to Cairo. And the Central Africa, as you know, is endowed with resources to go to Zimbabwe, to DRC, because of the rainforest. The timber at that time was fashionable. So we are just a desert. And we didn't have to fight for our independence. So it was handed to us because why? These people need that. Just give it to them. And then immediately after that, we discovered diamonds, and not just diamonds, some of the world best producing gem diamonds in the whole world. And it was too late for them to actually come back. So all these colonial stereotypes that other countries suffer were not there. So what we started from a humble beginning, and we had to control our economy. So now that this also has an impact on the people, because now the people had already said that because we are poor, we don't have water, we don't have industry, we don't have, so we need to conserve. So when the diamonds came in, it was after the fact. The culture was such that people now had to be self-reliant. So that's number one. That's make us unique from the rest of the world. Okay. Number two, it is that effect that actually now resulted in a culture of people who did not see the need to actually amass wealth for themselves, because for you to survive in Botswana, even after it was dry, there were no rains, we were actually working on handouts from overseas. So it actually made us now start to understand that. Now the third one is the issue of governance. Like Magu have actually said, he said, the fight against corruption is not an institutional thing. We only react, and reaction in investigation is far much less superior than prevention. One of the presenters in the conference actually even used the analogy that corruption is like a water moving through a pipe to a central area, reservoir, where it's going to be equally distributed. But it moves through the community, and other people are impatient. So when they see some leakages, they will actually even make sure that they increase the leakage in the pipe so that they benefit alone. So if you make the sealing, it has to be sealing of the whole system. So that is why I'm saying even good governance also actually contributes. It's the people, governance, and other structures and other oversight institutions like Parliament. Parliament has to really be strong. Parliament has to actually legislate, because
we will get to the contributing factors for the success of some countries in the fight against corruption. I'd like us to look at generally within the African continent, what countries are doing in terms of fighting corruption, and why it has remained endemic within our countries. Are we doing enough?
Yeah, I will say, my standpoint. I'm one guy came up with a theory which he want to expound. He's an activist. He's in South Africa. He said the good, the bad, and the ugly. Most of the time, when you go to conferences like this, you'll have more voices actually saying, hey, Africa has the richest resources, but it is the poorest. But you ask yourself, who made us poor? where are the resources from Africa taken to? So in my own need is that sometimes it is actually our history or our background or colonialism that actually engineered the current state of this. So with what we are doing currently, I can put my head on the block and say we are doing our best. We might not be doing it that enough, but we are doing our best that we could do actually. And there is a reason behind why we are not actually doing enough. I'm a systems thinker, and I believe in systemic things, because corruption in Africa is a systemic problem, and it needs systemic solutions.
Okay,
yeah.
It needs systemic solution. We will get back to, of course, the solutions in a moment. This is late edition, and we're looking at the perspectives to the fight against corruption. I have two gentlemen here with me, of course, who've had a wide experience in this regard. We'll be right back after the break.
This is NTA News 24.
All right, welcome back. You're watching Late Edition, and I have Ibrahim Magu, Acting Chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. I also have with me Victor Bruno Paledi. He is Director General, Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime, DCEC in Botswana. Thank you, gentlemen, for staying with me. Let me again begin with Mr. Ibrahim Magu, Acting Chairman of EFCC. Successive governments in Nigeria have done so much. At least that's to stem the tide of corruption. And we have a lot of institutions. We have, again, the ICPC is there. We have the Code of Conduct Bureau. We have the police. In addition to other legislations, yet with regards to our ranking by TI, Transparency International, although that's a perception, as you said earlier on, we're still, we're still not made what I will say significant, headway in this fight. What really are the challenges in the fight against corruption?
Yeah, if you look at the perception index, it remains perception, and if you have gone through the details that constitute the whole index, you discover that we gain about 7 points in what we have been in the fight against corruption. I think we had the lowdown in one of the indices there. That's how we came in. But nobody would tell me that, because what it suggests is that our index was even much lower than the previous years. And it's very clear. If you look at the recovery made and the successive convictions we got from the court, there is no basis of comparison. Definitely there is improvement, and we are able to sensitize and mobilize more Nigerians in the fight against corruption. So I don't believe it is right. I don't believe what they are saying. It becomes a mere perception with a lot of coloration. We have a lot of Nigerians that go out of this country and influence certain things that you cannot believe. So
can we put a value to so far? How much in terms of assets we've recovered, in terms of monetary. Can we put a value to it?
No, the thing is that we have so many ways of recovering money, and we associate, we collaborate, we work with certain government agencies. We support them, and because of our intervention, people rush into pay a lot of things to them. We also assist the bank, financial institution, we assist corporate entities, and we also go after the looters. And most of these things, they are not readily available for the government as an internally generated revenue. So there is difference between the internally generated revenue and what is recovered in the course of investigation. These people must understand. And then the recovery, when we trace the loot to a property, and most of the money is being channeled into purchase of properties all over the world. And these are properties sometimes, okay, for instance, one of the substances, we recover about over 40 million pounds worth of wristwatches, necklaces, earring, etc., etc. As at that time, we had experts that came from the UK and gave the prices based on the price tag on what, because it's so busy that it doesn't even care when you bring they will just keep it in the boxes. So over 40 million pounds, and then over time this has gone down now. The prices have dropped. So that is some of these houses, because it is easy money. Some corrupt people can buy one place, one land in Abuja is they buy the same plot of land 2-3 times. You know, because these people understand, you know, you have a lot of money, and this tout, they will come around, say, because it's easy money, so they will take you, they used to take them to the same plot of land. You find that a plot of land they will buy for 50 million naira, they will buy it 2, 3, 4 times the same plot of land. So
do we have systems to track down these perpetrators?
Yeah, that's why we know that's happening. Yeah, that's why we know. Now there is no hiding place for any perpetrator, and I'm happy that there is an association of the Commonwealth Africa, and even the Secretary General is thinking of bringing the entire umbrella of fighting corruption to the entire Commonwealth. They expand the association to cover the whole of Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is about 52 countries, and Commonwealth Africa is we are 19. So by the time we put it together, the whole 52 of us fighting corruption. So it's a borderless of crime. So there will be no hiding place.
You just talked about the Commonwealth. Of course, that takes me, Mr. Paledi, to the theme of the 8th Commonwealth Conference, which is partnering towards asset recovery and return. You know, can you speak a little more to this and how the countries are mainstreaming into that?
Yeah. I think that's a very good one, and I think partly Magu, like he introduced it, he said it, and I think to start with, I think one of the things that we need to do is that it's very, very, very critical to actually partner, because let me just explain corruption with the conventional criminal justice system, where you have to, as you know, I'm a former police officer, you need to take a case to court where you need to prove the mens rea, you need to prove the intent, like in a medicine, the knife is there, is the perpetrator fingers on the knife, and then you show. So now it's corruption for me it's like a conduit, it's a pipe, and it's the substance upon which all evils or all other crimes are committed, because it's a currency. Corrupt criminal syndicates, organized crime, they use it to actually make sure that they finance terrorism, they finance all other crimes with it. Now, if you are going to use the accusatorial criminal justice system that we are where the state has to prove its accusations beyond the reasonable doubt, causes a lot of other problems. But now, the issue of recovering assets is the only way we can actually start to maybe tint or start to head this is, because in that case we don't necessarily have to go the criminal way. We in asset recovery, we know. But the current challenge that we're actually facing now is the issue of different laws in different countries, and cooperation, and the issue of extradition, the issue of actually getting there. So I think, like I always say with my colleagues, and I told Mike this, that we need to actually forget all these differences and get together so that we can actually strategize against the common enemy, because the criminals are smarter than us. They don't have the protocols that you have. Here, me and him, we are director generals, big offices with a certain protocols in which we need to be approached, and then there are also others above us we need to approach that. But the criminals don't do that. A small guy here in Nigeria, 18 years, if he's got drugs, he talks to another guy in Botswana, older, 50 years, and he says, I've got this product. The guy in Botswana just have to verify, is this the real product that I want? He just puts this money. 2 minutes, the deal is done. But for me to talk to Magu with papers, I have to send them through foreign affairs. They have to go to to be
So
cleared first.
are we likely to have a convergence of laws?
No,
You know,
yeah, exactly. It's just like trade liberalization. We want to see how our operations, our collaboration can be liberalized, so that I can talk to my colleague in Botswana if there is anything for me from Botswana, and if there is anything for him if in my jurisdiction. So even informally, you can reach out to me informally, and I can go after criminals, and the same way. And this thing is already working. It's already working. Then when you do that, because delay is dangerous in this job. When you delay, you will not see the suspect. You will not see your target. I mean, it's not a question of you have seen the target, you want to go and follow some protocol, some process and procedure. When you come back, you won't see the target again. So delay is very, very dangerous. So this association has brought us together, and we know ourselves. So you can just call me if there is any crime that has extended to my jurisdiction. Then I'm not going to ask any question. Just give me the intelligence and the information for me to be able to do my, and I will go after the criminals. So
beyond the phone call, you know, to you know, a neighboring, you know, partner.
There is email also.
Yes, beyond that, are we looking at institutionalizing, you know, this, just like you said, like the trade liberalization policies? You know, we have, for instance, ECOWAS trade liberalization policy, which is binding on all ECOWAS countries. Are we going to have a kind of liberalization policy that is binding on all African, you know, states?
Across
all African
sorry.
Are we likely to have that?
Yeah. I think basically that's the whole reason for this conference. It's a platform against which we are going to create conversations. And I think the intention of the conversation, they are not just conversations, they are conversations for breakthrough. And if you have a conversation where it's like you are playing this sport called, you know, table tennis, they call it ping pong, where you hit the ball, it goes the other side, and you hit it back to the... No, we don't want to do something like that. We need to actually have breakthroughs that will actually give us ahas. And exactly what you are suggesting is the way to go there. But then, before you do that, as you know how protocols are, you need to first understand what is the issues, what are the issues, how best can we actually do it, so that we don't create a problem. Because most of the problems that we are currently having were created 50 years, 40 years. The corruption that we are actually talking about is not something that was created in 2 years, 3 years. It's created many years back because of the goodwill of some of the laws that people wanted us to develop. For example, in Botswana, we have issues like poverty relief or poverty eradication programs, which are of good intention. But the moment you start to circumvent processes of government, to me, honestly, I believe government processes have to be quick, fast and efficient, but they need not be circumvented. Because the moment you circumvent it, you say, no, I'm no longer going to be calling for proposals so that everybody can actually bid for the process. I'll directly employ. That's now when corruption gets, because now the risk becomes high. You become exposed now. You start now calling Magu from Nigeria because he's my friend. Come in, there is a tender here, take this. So those are the risks that you need to go. So
no, actually, nobody is saying they will circumvent any processes.
Exactly.
Yeah, the paperwork can still be done.
Okay.
Like, for instance, I had a reason to collaborate with my colleagues in Ghana. So he saw the court warrant of arrest we obtained. He saw all the process in court here. That is why he got the suspect, and he also filed such processes in their own court. So it's not a question of circumventing. It's just you give me the information in my country. If you are sure of an information or intelligence in the country, then we'll do this leg, and you do the other leg. So then you sit down and do the paperwork. But if you wait for the paperwork to be exhausted, I am telling you, you will not see the target.
Let me again...
You will definitely not see the target. And the delay is dangerous.
Let me draw your attention, both of you, to the words of the Secretary General of the Commonwealth, Right Honourable Patricia Scotland. And she said, I'm quoting, "You, the heads of anti-government agencies, will be seeking to meet, of course, some challenges." But she's also referred you to take advantage of the Commonwealth Office of Civil and Criminal Justice Reform. I don't know how you know, are we likely to leverage from that?
Of course, yes. In areas of training and advisory, yes, we collaborate. We are open to all manners of collaboration and, of course, collaboration and in areas of capacity building, etc., etc. I think there is a lot of things going. Last time we were in South Africa and we were supposed to have gone to Mauritius. These are other things that the Commonwealth Secretariat does to improve collaboration and understanding.
And then to add on that also, I think sometimes the civil way is much more quicker and easier than the criminal way, like Magu have actually been saying, because I think, like you hear, the theme of this conference is just collaboration to actually get back what is ours, and it's much more quicker in terms of actually what are the processes, because some of these things they're easier said than done, because you need people who are skilled to actually try to file the papers before the court. You need people with the technical know-how. So I think the issue of skill and knowledge is actually central to this. But the most important thing about it is actually meeting, like he's saying, because relationship is not between organizations, it's between individuals. So when we meet, we are actually able to actually exchange experiences directly, and we can actually measure.
You see, as a result of this collaboration, with entities, with other jurisdictions, we developed a template on the area of mutual legal on criminal matters. So before you go to the Attorney General of the Federation to demand for this collaboration, you exchange ideas. You know, you look at the template, you make sure everything is in place. Then they contact their own Attorney General. I also give to my Attorney General. My Attorney General will go through the paperwork, and then it's great faster. Because I know in those days, you send an MLAT, a request, it will never come back. It will just hang on there. So the work must be done.
In terms of assets, because this conference, the theme of it, of course, is partnering for asset, recovery and return.
Yeah.
With the return, that's the second leg of it. How seamless is that?
Well, like the Commonwealth Secretary General said yesterday, when we went for the Anti-Corruption Summit in 2016 in London, you know, Cameroon was said Nigeria and another country fantastically corrupt, and then they put the question to the president whether he needs any apology. The president said, "Look, I don't need any apology. Give me back my money." Yes, yeah. So that's this. One of the issues is that we trace money, we trace loot, we trace properties that are purchased with the looted fund, and to repatriate them, to bring them back to the people, it's going to be hell. So one of the issue to be addressed in these meetings and conference is how we can simplify the issue of repatriation, return back the money to the owner, and to simplify. And so that is why we are to simplify, because informal exchange of information between law enforcement agencies, not only anti-corruption, between law enforcement, is very, very necessary.
You know,
very key.
Sorry, before you come in, let me take the EFCC chairman. You trace.
Yeah.
And this is an area where a lot of people, have issues with the EFCC.
Yeah.
That the EFCC is more reactionary rather than proactive. You wait for the crime, to be committed, and then you begin to hunt for the suspect.
No. I don't have to come and tell you everything. The strategies should remain to us. Some of these things should be internal. We don't have to come and expose how we do things. Yeah.
So you actually, try to nip in the bud.
Yeah, of course. The thing is that you have to go. It's financial crime investigation. So it's much easier if it has gone through the the banking sector. And you go there, you confirm who owns the account. You also analyze, you come out with some activities, some financial activities in the account. You analyze the activities. That is when you go. Even you trace the money to that. The money is given to somebody. They use it to purchase properties. And that is it. It takes time. It takes time. We don't just go and, it's not like two fighting or assault or traffic offenses where you get the people and you interrogate them. No, no, no. We follow the money. We trail the money. And we get evidence that you are the signatory to the account, or A and B and C are signatory to the account, or Z is the authorizing officer.
And the crime scene is big.
Yeah.
It's wide. It covers many countries. And to go back to your original question, what you say, is it seamless? I think taking from what my brother Magu is actually saying, to give you a short answer, it's not seamless. Because once the assets are in another country, they've already been used to do other things, because originally, before you started your investigations, they were not classified as dirty. So these people were involved in actual other businesses that you actually do. And that's why he is using the word hell. It's difficult, because you can imagine if Nigeria has money overseas over $5 billion and it's quite a sizable amount into the economy of that. And not only for a short period of time, it's over time. So now for them to return the money, they will find this excuse. Tomorrow they come around and find it. That's why in my introduction I say our history, our colonial history and First World, it's just that it's undiscussable. People don't want to talk the truth in cases of corruption. There are very fundamental issues. The one that you've mentioned earlier, political will. Why is it that when presidents who are head of states, when they want certain kind of changes, they go ahead with them and do that? And then what is the problem with corruption? The problem with corruption is the secrecy surrounding it, and then also the secrecy of the banks and all the other things, and all the other things, and all the other beneficiaries who are faceless that you actually sue. That is what makes corruption very, very complex. Because I think the very people who actually accused us of being unable in Africa to actually handle our affairs, which is First World, they also contribute a lot to the predicament that you are currently facing.
So to what extent, and I'm directing my question to both chairmen of the anti-graft agencies, to what extent does weak institutions, because again, this is where, a lot of people have, had concerns that anti-graft institutions are weak, and that is why, corruption has remained endemic, keeps flourishing within the continent. So to what extent, are weak institutions responsible for this problem? Let me start with the EFCC chairman.
That's why I said, beside the political goodwill, political will to fight corruption, you need commitment. You need committed people to support you in the fight against corruption. And we need also the people to own the fight against corruption, to take ownership of the fight against corruption. So, I mean, weakness will continue to exist no matter how long you stay. And of course, when you have like in the present situation now, corruption is fighting back. Corruption is seriously fighting back. Seriously. But that doesn't deter us. That doesn't stop us from doing our work. Of course, the only way you can remove the weakness of institution, every institution has its own peculiar weaknesses and challenges. And the only way why is our own is different is that ours, I think people should support us. We mobilize people. They should
Chairman, I'd like to draw your experience, because obviously, in fighting, like you said, if you fight corruption, it turns back to fight you.
Yeah.
So there must be some very critical challenges that you face.
That's main challenges. The looters have a lot of money. Most of the money are, I'm telling you, they not only fight us back, you can see they are busy financing a lot of the things that is happening.
Not weak legislation or enforcement of...
No, weak legislation is also important, but they also determine what legislation will come out. I mean, they do a lot of things behind, from behind. So what I am saying is that the best way, I don't want to continue emphasizing on the weakness of the institution fighting corruption. You understand? Because I don't want to discourage people who are supporting us. Let's forget about the weakness. Let's move forward.
Yes, but you do have challenges.
Yeah, of course, definitely. I
yes,
told
because
you.
people will get to know.
Yeah,
you know,
sure, certainly. But I'm not bothered about the challenges. I am bothered about Nigerians taking ownership. I want Nigerians to join us in the fight against corruption.
So far, how deterred are Nigerians now?
Support us.
Yes, in terms of what would you say about Nigerians' attitude now?
Don't leave it to us alone.
What would you say about Nigerians' attitude now towards corrupt practices? Is it?
No, it's improving. It's definitely improving. Yes, yes. Even the corrupt, the looters are no longer comfortable. It will come to pass very soon.
And maybe let me explain Mr. Chairman's position in another perspective, but with the same language called English, but I will try to make it simple. I think what he's actually saying, he's a practitioner. Yeah. There is a book that I read by one guy, I like his book. The title of the book is Elephant in the Skin. And one of the things that he emphasized in the book, he says, he's sick and tired of talking to people who just talk and can't do. So we are aware of the problems that we are in my country, even though Transparency International rates us as one of the best. But the public perception is that DCEC is toothless. The agency that I hate is a toothless bulldog. You know why they are saying
it's everywhere.
It's everywhere. You know why they are saying that? Because I'm appointed by the president, and that's what they are. And the problem and the what I can say, the tragedy that I see world over in Africa is the issue of people coming up with conclusions and summaries when they've not even actually informed themselves about those particular subjects. You know, I can be appointed by parliament, but the issue is how is the parliament majority and what is it that they actually do. So I think the real independence, like Magu is saying, is with leadership. The independence is in your head and also with the people. People must know that corruption directly affects them. You know, we can have a placard and say, oh, stop corruption, don't say no to corruption. But we need to couch it such that they know in their own language and in their own terms what corruption. Corruption is the one that makes sure that you will not have the clean water. And we need to link that on daily basis so that they actually understand. So I think this guy who talks about elephant in the skin, he's actually saying, no, we'll always have a problem. And I can tell you, our agencies are currently having problems like weak institutions. And when you bisect or you cut out the weakness of institutions, say, what is this? It's obviously what finance, knowledge, capacity. And who controls all this?
Okay, I'll take a final one. You just inaugurated, of course, your magnificent headquarters. What value will that bring to the fight against corruption?
Well, at least it has shown the seriousness the government has in the fight against corruption. And it is coming at this time when we are having our annual meeting and conference of the head of anti-corruption in Commonwealth Africa. It's gratifying. The world now knows that we are really serious. And putting all of us together under one shade, I think it's going to go a long way. Before now, we are in rented quarters, which is not very good. Rented quarters seem to compromise the security of document and confidentiality, etc. So everybody is under one roof, and we will not longer occupy any rented quarters.
Let me join my voice to, of course, the dignitaries that congratulated you, the Commonwealth Secretary General, the Speaker of course, the House of, the National Assembly, House of Representatives, and of course, Mr. President. Congratulations, Chairman.
Thank you.
Gentlemen, I'd like to thank you for joining me to discuss the perspectives. You have a final word?
Yeah, before we go, I want to appeal to every Nigerians to support in the fight against corruption. Let us mobilize ourselves. It is about this country, about our country. It's not about individuals. No, please, we need the support of every Nigerian in the fight against corruption. In this way, we'll certainly win. In any case, we will win.
Ibrahim Magu is Acting Chairman, Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. I'd like to thank you very much for finding time out of your very tight schedule to join me for this conversation. I also like to appreciate the Victor Bruno Paledi, Director General, Directorate on Corruption and Economic Crime, all the way from Botswana. thank you very much for sharing your time with me.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And like Magu said, I think the secret about corruption is that it's systemic and it needs systemic solutions. And it's not only going to be won by the anti-corruption institutions. It's every citizen must actually join. And it's up to the citizens to actually find out about anti-corruption. We cannot always be looking for them under the tables when they are the ones actually perpetuating corruption. They need to come forward also.
All right, that's latest edition for today. Thank you for joining me. We'll be back same time next week. Bye-bye.